Welcome to California Edition. I'm Brad Pomerance. Glad you're with us. Our guest today is Betsy Butler, a member of the California State Assembly, running for re-election in November. We've known each other for many years. We were at the 1992 Clinton Convention, which was in New York or Chicago?
It was New York.
It was New York. And I wanted to talk to you, though, about the most recent convention. You're a Democrat, and you were at the Obama Convention in Charlotte, North Carolina. Tell me about it.
It was amazing. I mean, I think we have such a tremendous group of up-and-coming leaders and leaders, obviously, and the president. But also, I think it just reinstates the fact that the Democratic Party is about a really big tent, and there are a lot of people in that tent. We don't always agree.
Oh, no.
But
as the famous saying goes, I'm not a member of an organized party, I'm a Democrat.
But, you know, no matter your color, your economic status, your religion, we really are very inclusive, and I think there were a lot of really great salient points made.
It's interesting. The media can paint a picture, and we really don't know if that picture is as it feels in the hall. So was Michelle Obama as electric as the media said? I'm in the media. Was Bill Clinton as electric as the media said? Was Barack Obama not as flat as the media said?
Well, you know, it's interesting because California, not to cut anyone, but California was in the very back of the.
That's not fair.
And New York was up higher, even worse than us.
Because they're blue states?
Probably, yeah, probably. All the swing states were on the floor. But so we were really far away, so I would go home at 2 or 3 in the morning and watch the speeches again.
Oh, how interesting.
Because they're delivered so differently. So like Jennifer Granholm, who
former governor of Michigan.
Yeah, apparently everybody thinks that she just was crazy, but I'm like, oh no, this is like Howard Dean's Scream, right? Like in person, it's like, oh my God, it was the great thing. But how it comes across is very interesting.
So you've been to 6 conventions since 1992. How would you rate this convention in terms of electricity?
Yeah. Well, I think it's very important because everyone's talking about the fact that this is the most important time. This is the most important election. And
but they say that every time. Exactly.
And they all say we say that every time. But in fact, it is. I mean, if you look at the policies that our president is putting forward versus what Mitt Romney is suggesting with regard to so many issues, including Medicare and the overall health of this country, they're just so radically different. There's no similarities, really.
So you're running hard for re-election. And I want to ask you, as you're running, what are your voters saying to you? Again, the media puts out a picture that everyone's talking about Todd Akin and abortion rights or what's happened in Libya recently, but is that what the voters are telling you?
Right. Well, I think my district, which is Santa Monica to West Hollywood, the one I'm campaigning in, so I'm spending a lot of time there, but also my current district, the Venice, the Marina area south, jobs and education, you know, and we do have an initiative on the ballot, the governor's initiative, Prop 30.
Which I want to ask you about.
Right. If that doesn't pass, we're going to have to go back and make massive cuts, trigger cuts to education mainly.
So let's talk about that. Proposition 30, it's the governor's initiative. It's on the ballot in November. Increases sales tax by 1/4 cent for 4 years. Increases taxes on the wealthy for 7 years. You know, look, right now Californians are facing a lot of new taxes. We have the Amazon tax, which is kicking in. We have the lumber tax. We have the fire tax. We have LA County putting its own sales tax extension on the November ballot. A lot of taxes right now.
Right. Well, this all goes back to Prop 13. And when Prop 13 was passed, a lot of money was taken out of, I'm just going to say, the system, from education, from local government, et cetera. And so the state kind of took all that in and said, okay, we'll take care of you. But in really bad economic times, you know, this governor came in and said, we're doing redevelopment, we're getting rid of development, we're doing realignment. We're pushing it down local. You guys are going to have to do this on a more local level because the state can't afford it
It's
anymore.
really revolutionary what the governor's done, at least as it relates to realignment, because now we have low-level offenders serving their time in county jails. I mean, one could argue he had no choice given the U.S. Supreme Court had held that California prisons were cruel and unusual. But people are talking about Prop 30 in very serious ways. I mean, you hear people saying that whether Prop 30 passes or not really will change the fate of the state, almost as if it was 1978 under Prop 13. Do you see Prop 30 as a turning point for California?
I do, because if we don't get more revenue, we're going to have to continue to cut our schools, which we've already made such substantial cuts to our schools, to our health care. I mean, the budget of California only covers 3 things, really. It only covers education, corrections, and our health services, right? So if you keep cutting CalWorks and you keep cutting all the same people who have the same services, that's just going to land more of them in emergency rooms and on the streets, and the people who are getting cut over and over and over again are really feeling it severely, whereas if you tax the wealthier people, they're not feeling it as much.
But what's interesting, there is that sales tax side. So,
yes, so everyone will.
Everyone will face the sales tax increase. I do want to ask you briefly about Prop 38, which is a competing tax initiative. It's being supported by someone named Molly Munger. She is self-funding. That initiative would increase income taxes on everyone, 0.4% to 2.2% on a sliding scale upward. And the money would be dedicated in a lockbox, as Al Gore would say, towards education. I mean, if our concern is education, maybe Prop 38 is the way to go.
Well, actually, I do like the Prop 30 approach better because I think it needs to go in the general fund. 50% of what we spend in the general fund is on education. But again, going back to, does that mean we don't want to fund our correction systems or our health systems? No, we need to fund those as well. I mean, again, it's a domino effect. If you're not funding these, then it's going to come back. So education, of course, is incredibly important. Absolutely. And we need to get back on track with funding and have that money be dedicated.
Are you concerned that having Prop 30 on the ballot, Prop 38 on the ballot, in LA County, which you represent portions of, the sales tax extension for transportation projects, that the voters will just get bleary-eyed and just go, no, no, no?
Yes. I'm concerned about that.
And so what do you do, given that you are a major supporter of Proposition 30? I mean, presumably you want to go back to Sacramento and be able to create a better California. And as you describe it, that would be very difficult without Prop 30.
Right. Yes, no, it will be. And I do, our initiative system here in California is set up such that if you can confuse, people will just vote no. And that's a much longer conversation about what we need to do with our initiative system. But it is a confusing system, and there's 10 initiatives on the ballot, and you have to invest some time in it. So there will be lots of money, I would imagine, on both sides with regard to educating about 30 and 38. So
I know that recently the governor pushed and the legislature passed pension reform, and there had been a view that that was critical in order to ensure, the belief goes, the passage of Prop 30, because the view was that if pension reform had not passed, the argument could be made that, wait a second, I mean, if you can't even get our pensions in order, why should we give you more money? Do you think that that was as critical as some would argue?
Well, I think it's imperative that we take care of our workers. And as a former state and federal government employee, I have a pension. It's not fair to change the rules of the game once the game's begun. So this is for moving forward. I just need to make sure that we're taking care of those who are protecting us through law enforcement. These are very dangerous jobs, and you need to make sure that you have the best, the brightest, the healthiest people doing those jobs.
There's no doubt that we need to honor our state workers. I think it's very easy to bash government workers. It's in vogue today. But at the bottom line is the weight of pension obligations is very serious. We look at San Bernardino, we look at Stockton. I mean, the mayors have said part of the reason that they went bankrupt is they couldn't sustain the weight of pension obligations. So how do you balance that, Assemblywoman?
Well, we are doing that. I mean, this is the first stab at that, the first crack at doing pension reform. I would imagine there'll be more things coming down the line in the coming years, and even perhaps this next session. So it is something that is very important to the budgets of cities, local, state, obviously.
In our final moments, presuming you go back to Sacramento, what will your goals be in your second term?
I'll remain focused on the things I've been working on, a lot of elder care issues and veterans, consumer product and consumer right issues, and then also the environment, always my priorities. Okay, her name is Betsy Butler. She's a member of the California State Assembly. She's running for re-election. My name is Brad Pomerance. We'll be right back on California Edition.
Welcome back to California Edition. I'm Brad Pomerance. I'm glad you're with us today. We are joined by Gary DeLong. He's a member of the Long Beach City Council. He is also a candidate for the United States Congress. That election will be held on November 6th. I wanted to talk to you about the election. You're in what's seen as a competitive seat.
Very competitive.
You are a Republican. Alan Lowenthal, a state senator, is a Democrat.
Yes.
How's the race going?
The race is going extraordinarily well. We're in the home stretch now, right, within the last 60 days. I'd say at this point I'm a couple points up, but either way it's going to be a dogfight all the way to the end.
I do want to talk to you about the Republican ticket nationally. As we speak today, things could change. I think it's fair to say that the Republican ticket nationally has had better days, has had better weeks, has had better months. How do you run a campaign independent of a national ticket that, as we speak today, some would argue has been struggling?
Well, first of all, let me just, I agree with you. There are better days, better months, better elections, but so are the Democrats for that matter. And as you know, I'm not a very partisan person, but they're both having significant challenges. Just the fact that we have a president running for a re-election that has an extraordinarily weak record. So we're going to have to wait and see how that plays out.
But here's some interesting challenges for you because, look, we've known each other for a while.
Yes.
And you have always said that on fiscal issues, you are right of center.
Yeah, I am.
On social issues, you're left of center.
Both are true.
But the national ticket is not. I mean, they have come out against choice, against marriage equality, and these are issues that you have come out in support of.
That's correct.
And so talk to me about that balance.
Well, I think what we need in this country is we need more moderates in Congress. We need more moderate Republicans. We need more moderate Democrats. We need people that can meet in the middle and work together, build consensus, and solve our problems. Because I will tell you, I'm a Republican. You know
right,
that.
Yes.
I'm a Republican, but I can't tell you that Republicans have all the answers. We don't have all the answers for health care.
Of course.
We don't have all the answers for fixing the economy. Who has the answers is those that can reach across the aisle and work together.
Here's the challenge that I think you would face
Sure.
should you be successful in November.
You mean when I'll be successful?
Fair enough.
Okay, thank you.
When you arrive in Washington, you're not going to see a lot of New England Republicans, those moderates that we used to have. You may not see a lot of coastal Republicans as well.
Sure.
You could be a lone wolf.
You bet.
And so how in the 21st century, in its second decade, do you operate, maneuver as what you describe yourself as a moderate Republican?
Well, first of all, I have a proven track record of doing exactly that. In fact, my best compliment, or one of my best, a year ago came from one of my colleagues. She said, I don't understand it. There's one Republican, me, 8 Democrats on the city council, a Democrat mayor, and she goes, you always get what you want.
It is a city council, though.
It is. You got to build consensus, though.
Fair enough.
You got to collaborate. You got to work with everybody. You don't get to just work in your little silo.
But it's a body of 9, whereas the Congress is a body of 435.
Correct.
And Mr. John Boehner, the Speaker, has been known to govern with an iron fist.
All I can tell you is I've spoken with Speaker Boehner the day after the election. I let him know exactly who I am. I want to make sure we don't have any misunderstandings. I explained to him very clearly my position on some issues which I'm going to expect we're in disagreement on, and just wanted to make sure that he knew that before he put any support in the race. And he said, Gary, no problem. You need to represent your district. That's who you're running to represent, not the Republican Party. You have our full support, and when you get here, we expect you to do what you think is best for your constituents, and you'll never be criticized for it. That's the kind of campaign I run. That's the kind of elected official
I want to ask you about health care, because we know that the U.S. Supreme Court upheld the Affordable Care Act.
They did.
And they upheld the individual mandate. They have given states the power to opt in or out of a Medicare expansion. California's opting in. Other states are opting out. States' rights. States' rights. But do you have concerns as an American that those states where folks are opting out, it's going to be a little harder to get the medical care you need?
Well, I don't know that. I don't live in one of those states. Let me tell you what I'm looking for in healthcare. I want increased access. I want everybody to have access to healthcare. I want to reduce the cost and make it more affordable because we've had huge cost increases year after year after year. And my concern with the current path is it adds $1.8 trillion of cost, according to the nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office, which means healthcare is going to get more expensive, which is going to make access more problematic. And third, what I want
I thought the CBO had said the Affordable Care Act would actually save money.
Not true. No. The CBO said it will add $1.8 trillion. They came out a little over $1 trillion in the beginning. They revised it upward to $1.8 trillion. And that's as recently as maybe 2 months ago.
Okay. That being said, we do know that Congressman Ryan, who's the vice presidential nominee, has come out with a couple of proposals that are either loved or hated. And one is on Medicare, and it would create a voucher system that would be given to seniors. Another is on Medicaid, which would create block grants to states. What do you think about those proposals?
Let me tell you what I think the best proposal is to solve those problems. Now, the Republicans are in the majority currently, and I expect they will retain and perhaps grow that majority. The best proposal is one that comes forward and has bipartisan Democrat support, because if the Republicans put together a budget, a Medicare solution, whatever it is, if you do it on a partisan basis, it's dead on arrival. You and I are Americans, we get nothing when that happens. You need to work with the other side.
And it's interesting because we have heard from the Republican Party the mantra of repeal and replace. Repeal and replace. But what I'm hearing from voters is, where's replace?
No, exactly.
Where's replace?
And frankly, I'm not sure that a majority of people even want replace. I think a majority of people say, why can't we work with what we have? The train has left the station, whether you like it or not. The train has left the station. Why don't we fix what's wrong with that? Why don't we just make it better? Why do we have to repeal? Why do we have to repeal, replace, and we don't know what replace is? Let's take what we have. Let's figure out how to make it more cost effective, because I think that's the #1 issue. It's just too expensive. Let's figure out how to make it more cost effective and move it forward. But let's move forward.
If the Ryan plan comes up for a vote, be it on Medicare vouchers or Medicaid block grants, how would you vote?
Does it have Democrat support? That's my question.
I would presume not.
Well, then I probably won't support it.
Okay, let me talk.
But if you've got some blue dog Democrats, some other people, now, you're bringing me in. You show me some bipartisan support, I'm probably going to be there. But if you give me something that's passed on party lines, I'm not there, because it's not going anywhere. We don't accomplish anything. That's one of those things where I say, look what we did, and we did nothing.
I want to shift gears. You're on the City Council of Long Beach, and a city right next door, Compton, is on the verge of bankruptcy.
And not just Compton. Many cities.
But it happens to be your neighbor. It happens to be your neighbor. Moody's has, they're no longer rating it. Are you concerned about the health of municipalities generally, given what we've seen in Stockton and in San Bernardino? Mammoth Lakes was a unique situation.
Yes, but
now
still.
Compton's on the verge. Talk to me about that.
You know, the state legislature has served our state extraordinarily poorly the last decade. And you see a lot of the problems in municipalities today is due to the state legislature.
Well, there's no doubt that the elimination of redevelopment caused a lot of heartache.
Yes, that's the most recent thing they've reflected, is stolen that money, put it in the black hole of Sacramento, and taken away the largest economic development tool. And I got to tell you, my opponent, Alan Lowenthal, voted to kill redevelopment, and he knew how bad it was for cities, for Long Beach, for Westminster,
There's no doubt it's incredibly controversial. It's undeniable.
Well, it's not controversial. Redevelopment was an outstanding economic development.
But some would argue that there was a lot of abuse behind redevelopment.
Fix it.
And that's
like
what
the healthcare. We should fix
some are
what's
trying
there.
to do that.
They didn't fix it. They threw it out.
What about pensions, though? I mean, that is a tremendous weight.
And who caused that? The state of California, the state legislature. They wanted to enrich people. The special interest money got to the state legislature. They passed SB 400. My opponent again voted for 50% increases in pension, and they barred nothing for it.
But there's been some major reform. Some say it hasn't gone far enough.
At the state of California, it's not major. Now in Long Beach, we've had very significant reform. We have rolled back our pension system to what it was before that Gray Davis debacle of 2000. We've done wonderful things, and police and fire have led the way. Those unions, they've come to the table. They've led the way in Long Beach. We've done great things. If the state of California did recently, in the last round, what Long Beach did, we'd be on a much better path, but they haven't. They nibbled around the edges.
Here's the challenge, because Long Beach is part of the CalPERS system.
We are.
And
that's one hand tied behind
there
our
you
back.
have it.
Yep.
But look, I mean,
I'll tell you what we would do. What we want the state to do is we want to do a couple of things. First of all, we want to provide the ability in CalPERS to negotiate pension benefits for existing employees on a going forward basis. That's absolutely necessary.
I mean,
on a going forward, don't take anything away from anybody that's earned it. But it's crazy if you've worked for us.
You can't. I mean, if the other side will come to the table.
Not today. If you worked for us a year and your union said, you know what, we realize that you're heading towards bankruptcy, we'd like to reduce our pension benefits this year, next year, and the year after, that's illegal. You can't do it. You cannot reduce a pension benefit. That's crazy.
Is that the law, or is
that's
that...
the law? We need the state of California legislature to make that change. We hope that they would. They didn't. And the last thing they need to do is they need to give you a hybrid.
It didn't happen.
That didn't happen.
Okay, his name is Gary DeLong, member of the Long Beach City Council. When we come back, we'll be speaking with Al Austin, one of the newest members of the Long Beach City Council. I'm Brad Pomerance. We'll be right back.
Thank you.
Welcome back to California Edition. I'm Brad Pomerance. Glad you're still with us. We are now joined by Al Austin. He is the newest member of the Long Beach City Council, one of the biggest cities in our great state. I congratulate you again on your victory. You're about 2-3 months in. How has it been going for you?
Actually, it's been about 7.5 weeks.
Okay.
I'm not really counting, and it's going pretty well. You know, we hit the ground running day one. I want to say the second week in office, I was holding a town hall.
Really?
On the 710 corridor project, proposed 710 project with residents.
Which is incredibly controversial.
It's controversial. It's very large in scope. It's going to have a major impact on you know, the life of residents up and down that 710 freeway.
And what's interesting is, you know, it's one thing when you are not a member of a city council. Now people are listening to you, and they're trying to influence you. How is that for you? I mean, you work for a labor union otherwise where you're always influencing, but now you're being influenced or attempted to be influenced.
Well, I guess the experience I've had as an advocate for several years has helped me because I know a little bit. I expect it, and I can see when someone is actually trying to move me one way or another.
Right. But what about the challenges of being a city council member for one of the largest cities in the state, and yet it's not a full-time job? I mean, you have a regular full-time job.
Right.
You know, some people feel as if maybe we should look toward, you know, full-time city councils for large cities. Be that as it may, how is it for you juggling?
Well, it is a full-time job.
And that's the problem.
2 full-time jobs.
And you have married children?
I'm married with children.
How many children?
I have a family with responsibilities. I have three boys.
Are they younger?
I have 2 young ones. One is 11, the other 7 years old.
I mean,
so, yeah.
You have 3 full-time jobs.
They're active kids. And
right. So how do you manage your time?
Well, let's just say there isn't any free time in the day. I usually make the best of all of the time that I have.
Sure.
And the good thing is the work that I do affords me some flexibility in terms of I don't necessarily have to be at a desk, you know, 8 hours a day either. So.
I want to speak with you about the state of municipalities in California. As you know, 3 municipalities have filed for bankruptcy recently. Mammoth Lake's filed for reasons unconnected to the others. They had a piece of litigation that they lost, and it was a weight on them. Cities of Stockton and San Bernardino filed bankruptcy. They filed in large part because of the weight of employee compensation. At least that's what they say. Compton, right next door to the city of Long Beach, is in dire straits. The Standard & Poor's recently suspended Compton's ratings on their bonds because the city failed to get an audit firm to sign off on their financials. It's getting real dicey for a lot of cities. I'm not pretending that Long Beach is in a dire state, but talk to me about that.
Well, I mean, Long Beach is, I don't believe we're close to actually going anywhere near bankruptcy. I think our city has been managed fairly well over this past 8 years, where we've actually made cuts to our budget and made adjustments. Pensions are a big issue right now, and our police and firefighters have come to the table and given back in terms of providing reforms in that regard, which was going to save the city over $100 million over the next 10 years.
Now, are these concessions on current employees, or is it a concession for future hires?
Well, there are concessions on current employees as well as future hires. The current employees are picking up more of the cost of pensions.
Right, the contribution.
The contribution, yes. They're picking up 100% of their contributions, and then future employees are going to come in at a lower or adjusted formula.
Do you know if Long Beach is part of the CalPERS system, or does it have its own pension fund?
Long Beach is the largest city in the municipality in the CalPERS system.
So as you know, there was some serious, arguably serious, some would say it didn't go far enough, pension reform passed by the state. The governor has signed it. How does that play into Long Beach and its pension system?
Well, as I said, our public safety units have, I believe, bargaining units have actually exceeded what is expected or what was passed in Sacramento. Our largest city employees union, the IAM, has yet to come around on pension reform. And I certainly believe when their contract is up in next year, 2013, that will be something that is strongly considered, if not before.
I want to talk to you about pensions, not only as a member of the Long Beach City Council, but as someone who works for a union, a public union, AFSCME, which is the state workers union. You know, it's very in vogue today to bash public employees. Try to suggest that they are just taking, you know, from the trough and they negotiate over generous packages. I don't know if that's true or not, but what I do know is that, you know, as individuals, public employees surely try to work as hard as the next person, be it public or private. How have you tried to frame or manage the perception of public employees?
Well, to be quite honest with you, I don't think public employees are any different than any other, you know, they're our neighbors, they're our friends, they're family members, and they work hard, they get up and they make an honest living every single day.
And I understand what you're saying, but I think it's hard to deny that with what happened in Wisconsin, with what happened, there was some very serious pension reform passed in San Diego, in San Jose, that public employees have seen better days in terms of perceptions.
Right.
And I just look and wonder, you know, what does that mean for the future of public employment? I mean, you know, for many years there was this view that you went to work for the government, for a public sector, you may make a little bit less, but there are outstanding benefits both during and on the end of your reign. That probably is changing.
Well, that's certainly a changing dynamic. I can remember graduating from high school in 1986.
Whatever it was.
And that choice was before me. Do I go into the private sector? Do I go into the public sector? I chose to go into aerospace because there was obviously more money involved and a little bit more excitement at the time. And you know, that paradigm has shifted significantly over the last 20 plus years. I can tell you that I don't know what the future holds for public sector employment. Obviously, it's a changing environment, and you know, they have been vilified so much over in the press and by particularly right-wing pundits over the last you know, several years, where now it's vogue to bash public employees. And you see, you know, even Democratic city council members and state lawmakers vilifying them as well. There is an issue with finances. It's basic math,
right?
And I think unions recognize that as well. And I think the collective bargaining process actually works. I mean, it can work. It does work. You know, when parties are at the table and the information is crystal clear, you know, a union representative at the bargaining table has to make a decision. Am I negotiating for the greater good? Am I negotiating to keep, you know, the masses employed?
But look, I mean, some unions may negotiate in good faith. Others, I mean, some could argue the IEM maybe not negotiating in good faith.
Well, I won't say that they're not negotiating in good faith because I haven't been at the bargaining table. I do know that, you know, particularly here in Long Beach, you know, we had our mayor gave a State of the City address a year ago, and he basically outlined the terms of bargaining there.
He did.
You know, so I don't know
that would be Bob Foster.
If in really collective bargaining, do you really bargain in the press and in the media? And I think, you know, at the end of the day, you know, because the IAM certainly doesn't have a bully pulpit to come out and talk about, you know, their proposals and what they'd like to see from the city. So there has to be a balanced playing field. So
as you look forward to your full term, you know, you're just a few months in, as you said, what do you hope for? What are your dreams? What are your goals?
Well, first and foremost, I want to preserve services. I mean, you know, that's holding the line right now on quality services in our neighborhoods and you know, maintaining the character, integrity, public safety in the 8th District is something that my constituents care much about, but I think it's very important for us to keep up this image in the city.
His name is Al Austin. He's a member of the Long Beach City Council. My name is Brad Pomerance. We thank you so much for watching California Edition.